I wanted to talk about the new Apple CarPlay that Apple announced at WWDC. This is a fully integrated software platform that is intended to connect not just your infotainment screen, but all of the car's native instrumentation. So obviously things like your speedometer, but also all the other things that are essential to running the vehicle, to operating the vehicle. Plus, more advanced features like adaptive cruise control, navigation, and more. Now, we've heard inklings about this next generation of CarPlay. Today was the first day that Apple announced exactly what the next generation of CarPlay is, and they dove into a pretty deep explanation of how that is going to function. So to start with, it's highly customizable. So it's not as if there's just going to be a single standard Apple-defined style for things like speedometers and what have you. But there are some things that won't change, the font being one key example. Beyond that, when it comes to the layout of the dials, there are some standard formats, but there are extensive customization options which allow each automaker and for each vehicle or each use case to make substantial changes. Colors, font sizes, scales, thickness, the style of the dial, specific placement of whatever information. And it's a modular system, meaning layouts are, within a certain framework, highly customizable. Moving over to the infotainment screen, there's a lot more customization. And I think one key thing to point out here is this isn't screen mirroring. And they didn't offer any specific explanation of how your phone connected, but I think it's safe to say that instead of having just a single rectangle that your phone interacts with, all the apps that we use today in CarPlay would be connected to this more fully, holistically integrated interface. It's a fascinating concept, and for everybody who loves Apple and iPhone and iOS, I think there's a lot of things that we miss when we use native automotive applications. Responsiveness, logic to the layouts, basic good practices around tap targets, and information hierarchy that just don't seem to be what we get even on the latest and greatest automotive UI. There are exceptions to this rule, and I don't want to say everybody is terrible at it except Apple. But the point is that Apple does bring something to the party that we haven't seen as a given from major automakers. There are exceptions to the rule, and I think Tesla is widely applauded for the way that their interface works, aside from the fact that it is too heavily focused on the touchscreen. So this is Apple's big effort to make a beachhead when it comes to the automotive interface. As we know, they canceled Project Titan last year, and with that project gone, this is what we're gonna get. This is the best of Apple inside the car. Now, I will say the demo was very interesting and juicy. There was a lot of beautiful animations and transitions that really brought the interface to life, that made it feel like, hey, this could be a really excellent user interface. And I honestly can't wait to try it out myself. I do think when I look around the landscape, and I think there's two specific examples that jump out at me where manufacturers are trying to broaden their definition of what a user interface is and how it functions. So BMW, in their preview of their upcoming EV architecture, the Neue Klasse, has their new Vision interface. And what they've done there is they've created a projection that spans the base of the windshield. And on that screen, the user has total control over what information goes where. To me, it's a brilliant interface, and I'll dive into that in a different video. But it has nothing to do with Apple CarPlay OS, and it's a good example of how native integration that is the same organization building the software and the hardware can do things that you can't do with an off-the-shelf system like this. Ironic, since Apple is the one who's most well known for the value created when you integrate software and hardware design. The second example I'll bring up here is the latest Rivian interface as previewed with the early looks at the R2 and the new mechanical dials. And I have another video where we talk about that. But suffice it to say that for many vehicles, next generation CarPlay could do wonders to make that experience a lot better for our drivers and users. For other companies, they're doing wonderful things already on their own, and I really am excited to see both of those paths emerge and develop. And that's your peek at the next generation of Apple CarPlay.